Hi, this is Steve with Thresher Media Group. Welcome to When You're Ready to Listen. This podcast is dedicated to exploring the truth about God, things you may not have understood, may not have been taught, or quite frankly, had a very hard time believing. And since our entire relationship with God rests on believing, it is important we learn how to separate the truth from the many lies and fictions that abound within the religion of Christianity. So when you're ready to listen, tune in and discover a pathway to freedom, encouragement, life, and hope. In our last podcast, we discussed the Great War, which according to Revelation was not so much a war, but simply a word spoken. We had to do a deep dive into the Codex to get the details of the war, including a description of all the nations that will come against the rider in white. It was a very awful storyline, but one which the Codex speaks so much about. Let's pick back up with the aftermath of the war. Episode 167, Revelation 19, verses 20 through 21, Part 2. The aftermath of the war. Now that we filled in the blanks regarding what happens during the war and got a view of how grisly and grotesque it will be, let's get back to our verse that deals with the aftermath of the great war against the hosts of heaven and against all those who refuse to bet their lives on the name of Yahweh. Revelation 19, verses 20 through 21. And the beast was seized, and with him the false prophet who was performing the signs in his presence, by which he deceived those who had been receiving the mark of the beast, and those who are now worshiping his image. Now living, these two were cast into the lake of fire, which is caused to now be burning with brimstone. And the rest were caused to be killed with the sword proceeding from the mouth of him who chooses to now be sitting on the horse, and all the birds were caused to be filled with their flesh. The demise of the beast and the false prophet. Isaiah 33, verse 1. Woe to you, O destroyer, while you were not destroyed, and he who is treacherous, while others did not deal treacherously with him. As soon as you finish destroying, you will be destroyed. As soon as you cease to deal treacherously, others will deal treacherously with you. The beast and the false prophet simply never had a chance. Their delusion, gall, and foolishness were extreme, and therefore so is their punishment. The beast was seized or taken, and with him the false prophet. Normally, they say that payback is hell, but this payback is far worse than hell. They are thrown alive, or now living, into the lake of fire, which is now burning with brimstone. The Codex actually predicted this back in Daniel chapter 7, verses 11 through 12. Then I kept looking because of the sound of the boastful words which the horn was speaking. I kept looking until the beast was slain, and its body was destroyed and given to the burning fire. Do you remember the boasting of those who followed the beast? Who is like the beast, and who is able to wage war with him? The answer is plain and simple. Jesus. Yahweh Adonai, Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord our God, the Almighty. All it took was a word. It is strange that with all the build-up to this event and all the details we are given about the beast and the false prophet, that they are just summarily dismissed and disposed of instantly upon Jesus' return. There's no fight, there's no struggle, just a word. I mean, that is how amazing our God is. No one is an actual foe of God. In fact, no one even has a chance against him. The beast and the false prophet were just tools, servants, ministering spirits sent to do Yahweh's Sabaoth's will on earth as it is in heaven, just as he declared thousands of years in advance. It's no wonder the bondservants of God even now sing and are now saying in Revelation chapter 15, verse 3 through 4, Great and marvelous are your works, O Lord God the Almighty. Righteous and true are your ways, King of the nations. Who will not fear, O Lord, and glorify your name? The sudden and instantaneous demise of the beast and the false prophet brings to mind a prophetic word which, by which you might be encouraged. Sons and daughters, the battle today is mine. I've given you each swords and arrows, but it's up to you to take up your shields. The enemy seems huge, and you seem far outnumbered. But you cannot see what I see, citizens of heaven. Do not be like Israel of old, who would turn from me with barely a thought. Do not bow down to your idols of gold and your gods made of wood and stone. I am the Lord of heaven's armies, and the victory lies with me. You are either with me or against me. Do you not see that the enemy can crumble with merely a flick of my finger? Do you really think this is any big deal for me? That I am scared? That I am powerless? That I am having even to spend a moment to scheme and plan an offense or defense against the enemy? No! This is all for you. For you. I don't need to prove how big and powerful I am to myself. Do I need to go to battle and throw some punches just to make sure I am still in control? No. Citizens of heaven, fear not. Turn yourselves to me. I am so huge. I am so powerful. I have never lost, and I will never lose. It's impossible. All it takes is a word. Remember, never forget. And the beast was seized, and with him the false prophet who was performing the signs in his presence by which he deceived those who had been receiving the mark of the beast and those who are now worshiping his name. For some reason, the Spirit reminds us that there are those who, even now, are worshiping the image of the beast. With worshiping being rendered in the present active participle, we can be sure that this is not an end times phenomenon. It's a now phenomenon, and it's an ongoing phenomenon. People are worshiping the image. He also reminds us that the mark of the beast, 666, is not an end times event for which we await. Being rendered in the aorist active participle, we know it has happened, and it has been happening since the time of the revelation. If you remember in Revelation 13, verses 16 through 17, the Spirit revealed this hidden truth about the false prophet. And he now causes all, the small and the great, and the rich and the poor, and the free and the bond slaves, to possibly be given their mark on their right hand or on their forehead, and that no one might now be caused to buy or sell except the one who is now having the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. The activity of the false prophet is a now event, every moment of now since the revelation was given. Why did the Spirit bring this up once again? Perhaps the Spirit's inclusion of the statement is just another act of mercy. For too many have sadly bought into the end times fictions of our day. As a result, they're totally unaware that this has been happening every moment of now. People even now are marked. People even now are worshiping the image of the beast. People even now bear his name or the number of his name, 666. These are spiritual markings that are visible from the view of the heavenlies by those who abide in the unseen world. Sadly, the refusal of our biblical translations to render these verbs in the present tense, as it appears in the Greek manuscripts, has kept far too many following the fictions. If you are listening to this, or if you are reading the transcript, which you can download for free at threshermediagroup.com, you are one of the few with whom God has chosen to share his secrets, that which both man and the enemy has tried to keep hidden. You are a recipient of his great mercy. Take this message and proclaim it. This is happening now. The lake of fire. And the beast was seized, and with him the false prophet. Now living, these two were cast into the lake of fire, which is caused to now be burning with brimstone. As for the lake of fire, whether we are to understand it literally or as a metaphor, we're not entirely sure. But either way, it speaks of a horrific place that is even now burning with brimstone or sulfur, probably much like lava. Jesus said that the eternal fire was originally prepared for the devil and his angels. It is a place where the worm that eats at you from within does not die, and the fire is not quenched. Therefore, whether it is a picture describing something absolutely horrific or a literal lake of fire, we can be confident that it is a place that is beyond terrible, a place of eternal suffering. The Codex also refers to this as a place of outer darkness, where there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. This is significant. Those thrown into the lake of fire will not be annihilated. They will not cease to exist, as some believe. Rather, they will have an eternity of living death. This existence of suffering and torment is referred to as the second death. Psalm 11:6. On the wicked he will rain snares. Fire and brimstone and burning wind will be the portion of their cup. The rest of them. And the rest of them were caused to be killed with a sword proceeding from the mouth of him who chooses to now be sitting on the horse. And all the birds were caused to be filled with their flesh. This notion of the rest, or those remaining, would include not just the armies of the nations, but the spiritual armies of the kings of the earth. This death, which results from Jesus' spoken word, is for both human and all the wicked demonic hordes, the fallen angels that have for centuries plagued mankind. This will include the man we call the Antichrist. From here on out, through the rest of the Revelation narrative, we have no further mention of any other demonic beings except for the dragon, the serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, who found a place to hide away during this epic battle. And we're told about Gog and Magog, angelic beings who God keeps around for the judgment that occurs in Revelation 20 when he finally dispatches the devil and these spirit princes to the lake of fire. This statement about the rest and their deaths is in essence a summary passage or a wrap-up of events. But in terms of the hosts of heaven, the angelic beings who did not keep their proper abode, we must look to the Codex to understand the details surrounding their demise. Isaiah 24, 21 through 22. So it will happen in that day that Yahweh will punish the hosts of heaven on high and the kings of the earth on earth. They will be gathered together like prisoners in the dungeons and will be confined in prison, and after many days they will be punished. Jeremiah 10, verses 10 through 11. But Yahweh is the true God. He is the living God and the everlasting King. At his wrath, the earth quakes, and the nations cannot endure his indignation. Thus you shall say to them, the gods that did not make heavens and earth will perish from the earth and from under the heavens. In terms of these spiritual beings, they're not instantly obliterated upon Jesus' return. Rather, they were killed with the sword proceeding from the mouth of him who chooses to now be sitting on the horse. This brings up an important aspect of creation that applies to humanity and the angelic alike. We are eternal beings. Our flesh may be killed, whether the flesh of humanity or the flesh of the angelic upon which the birds feast. But our essence, our spirits live on. According to the Codex, no one is obliterated from existence. Rather, all will know an eternity, either in the presence of God or in the eternal fire. Once killed, these angels are captured, shut up in prison, likely in the abyss, for many days, likely for the entire 1,000-year millennial period when Jesus reigns on the earth. And then they will be punished. Since we know the lake of fire was prepared for the devil and his angels, in their punishment, they will be assigned their place in the eternal fire. The birds. And all the birds were caused to be filled with the flesh. This picture of the second coming is mind-numbing. The birds, whether physical or spiritual, are stuffed, glutted, bursting from feasting on the dead. The numbers of the physical dead will be so staggering that it will take 7 months for those in Israel to bury the dead. I mean, what a gruesome finish. They never had a chance. This also enlightens us to the fact that the angels are spirits wrapped in their own kind of flesh, just like humanity. And these birds will feast on their flesh, but their spirits will live on and face punishment. The Spirit hinted at this reality back in Revelation 16, verses 13 through 14, where we were told that the frog-like spirits that come forth from the mouth of the beast, the false prophet, and the dragon are spirits of demons. Then again in Revelation 18:2, the Spirit mentions unclean spirits, which are the guardians of those who abide in the house of the harlot. The point is that these birds will feast on the flesh of angels and humanity. With that, we have finished Revelation 19. Let's do a quick overview of Revelation 20, but we will wait until our next podcast to dive deep into that chapter. Revelation 20, the overview, the post-war wrap-up. Satan is bound in the abyss for 1,000 years. God's people rule the nations. Satan is released to deceive the nations. Fire from heaven destroys them all. Satan is thrown into the lake of fire. And the great white throne judgment. Let's read Revelation chapter 20, verses 1 through 15. Then I saw an angel now coming down from heaven, now holding the key to the abyss, and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold of the dragon, the serpent of old, who now is the devil and the Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. And he threw him into the abyss and shut it and sealed it over him, so that he may not deceive the nations any longer, until the 1,000 years might be completed. After these things, he now must be caused to be released for a short time. Then I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was caused to be given to them. And I saw the souls of those who caused to being afflicted because of their testimony of Jesus and because of the word of God, and those who had not worshipped the beast or his image, and had not received the mark on their forehead and on their hand. And they lived and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. The rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were caused to be completed. This, the resurrection, the first. Blessed and holy is he who is now having a part in the resurrection, the first. Over these, the second death now has no power, but they, in the future, choose to be priests of God and of Christ, and in the future, reign with him for 1,000 years. And when the 1,000 years are caused to be ended, the Satan will in the future go out from his prison and will come out to deceive the nations that are at the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them for battle. Their number is like the sand of the sea. And they marched up over the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints, and the city caused to being loved. But fire came down from heaven and consumed them. And the devil who is now deceiving them was caused to be thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet were. And they will in the future be caused to be tormented day and night forever and ever. Then I saw a great white throne, and he who now chooses to now be sitting on it. From his presence, earth and heaven fled away, and no place was caused to be found for them. And I saw the dead, great and small, having been standing before the throne, and books were caused to be opened. Then another book was caused to be opened, which now is the book of life. And the dead were caused to be judged by what was caused to being written in the books, according to what they had done. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead who were in them. And they were caused to be judged, each one of them, according to what they had done. Then death and Hades were caused to be thrown into the lake of fire. This now is the second death, the lake of fire. And if anyone's name was not caused to be found, caused to being written in the book of life, he was caused to be thrown in the lake of fire. There's a lot that takes place in this post-war wrap-up, but it centers on Satan, the nations, Satan again, then fire, lots of fire, and the final judgment of all. Let's stop here. In our next podcast, we will pick up beginning in Revelation 20, verse 1. I'm glad you tuned in and have been ready to listen. To get a free download of the full written transcript with all the scripture references footnoted, please go to threshermediagroup.com. That is THRESHER mediagroup.com. This is Steve with Thresher Media Group. When you're ready to listen, tune in.